Well, good morning, everyone. It looks like the number of participants joining us today has slowed down. I'll continue to monitor the attendees list and promote those as they come in. Welcome to the September 1st iteration of the CWG for San Diego region. As you just probably heard through your audio, the meeting is being recorded. The recordings of the videos are posted to the Sandag website under the Conformity Working Group page for future reference if we need to go back and for transparency for the public. As with the last few meetings, we start our second slide here with Sandag's commitment to equity, where we're going to acknowledge the historically underserved, systematically marginalized groups that Sandag is striving to serve, and that Sandag is also committed to developing a equity action plan in 2021. And if you have any questions on that, I'm happy to speak more to those points. Getting to our welcome and introductions, I'm going to promote a few more individuals from the attendees list to panelists so they can also speak. And then I'm going to attempt to run through the attendees as I'm looking at the panelists list. So from Sandag, we have myself, Sam Sanford, and Phil Traum from the Long Range Planning Group. From the Transnet Programming Group at Sandag, we have Sue Alpert and Richard Radcliffe. From APCD, we have Nick Cormier. From CARB, we have Nesamani Kalandiur and Stephanie Parent. From US EPA, we have John Kelly. From Caltrans headquarters, we have Lucas Sanchez, Lexi Ariano, and Erika Espinosa Araiza. And let's see. Also from Caltrans headquarters, we have Ami Mohai. And let's see, who did I miss? We have Tony joining us. Tony, I don't have your last name. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Tony Connell from Caltrans headquarters.
Thank you, Tony. Welcome. And then we also have a dial-in number ending in 417. Would that person like to introduce themselves?
Yeah, this is Joseph on Federal Highways calling in.
Morning, Joseph. Thank you. Appreciate you joining us today.
Had some technical difficulties.
So thanks. Glad you're able to work through it. All right, is there anybody else that I missed that's here today? All right, not hearing any. I'll continue to monitor who's joining the meeting and introduce them as they join us. But if that's all we have for the welcome and introductions, we'll advance get into the agenda itself. So our first item here, first substantive item, is the review and approval of the meeting minutes from our last meeting. And so our last meeting of the Conformity Working Group was July 7th. And so if there are any comments or corrections on those minutes, I'm happy to take those now and I can correct that record. There is no action on this. It's just a confirmation or confirm that everything is accurate in those minutes. So I'll pause here, see if there's anything. Okay, hearing none. Move on to item number 3, which is public comments, communications, and member comments. I didn't hear any members of the public, but I always like to ask if there are any members of the public that would like to address the CWG today. How about any member comments or communications that be for the benefit of the group? Okay. We'll move on to the reports. On the report section of today's agenda starts with number 4, which is the draft San Diego Forward, the 2021 regional plan. So this has been on our agenda for a few months now. It is the major product of Sandag that's we've been working on for quite a while. The draft plan was released for public review on May 28th, and we were accepting public comments in the comment period through August 6th. At this point, we are culling through all those comments, of which we have quite a few. We have nearly 1,000 individual or unique commenters provided input for the draft plan. So we're culling through those comments and responding to those, and those responses will go into the public involvement plan appendix to the proposed final. Other updates on the San Diego Forward plan is we are working on Appendix C, which is the air quality conformity documentation. So we anticipate releasing that to this group, to the San Diego CWG, in late September for your review. So, and give you a 30-day review of that prior to the proposed final being released, the remainder of the plan being released to the public, which we anticipate that release just before the Thanksgiving break is our aim. For the next meeting of the CWG, which is scheduled for October, that's when we anticipate going over the revenue assumptions for any updates on the revenue assumption section of the plan. And that will be the last element as far as the conformity criteria for interagency consultation. Are there any questions on the draft 2020 draft San Diego Forward? All right. As I'm thinking of them, other updates that we anticipate releasing with the advanced copy of the proposed final for this group, if timing works out, we will have the updated 2020 SIP budgets, if that works out with US EPA's efforts undergoing under the next item of this agenda. If not, we'll have both budgets for the on-road conformity piece. So currently, the version that's out and is available for public viewing includes air quality budgets for both the 2016 SIP and the 2020 SIP that was produced by APCD, Air Pollution Control District. Yes, Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Just a quick question, because I think I saw that you guys also released the EIR for the regional plan just like last week, right?
Friday.
Right. And that has a separate time frame for commenting on the EIR piece, if I understood that right. Are they both going to be looked at kind of together on Sandag's end and have equal weight in terms of any comments that come in either on the EIR or the regional plan?
Good question. And so yes, the draft EIR was released on Friday and is out for public comment currently. Comments for both the EIR and the plan will be responded to, all those substantive comments that come in. We do try and focus the comments, if they're EIR related comments, we really have the EIR team work on addressing those. And then comments that are plan related come back on the planning team. I don't know if there's difference in weighting. We are responsive to all of them, however they come in.
Okay, yeah, that's what I figured. I was just checking because due to circumstances beyond our control, we weren't able to get our comments in for APCD in time for the plan part. But it sounds like there may be still an effort to try and get some comments in during the EIR process. I haven't gotten any final word on that, but I think that was being floated around recently. So just wanted to make sure. I'm sure you guys would take equal weight either way, but just be on the lookout for that as part of that process from us.
And Nick, this is Elisa. The comment period for the EIR is open until October 11th. So there's definitely opportunity, to comment on the EIR and as Sam was saying, we will be addressing those comments. And if they are plan related, we get a little bit into a timing issue if it is a plan related comment, because by October 11th, we have to have a lot of the production on the plan, fairly underway. But we definitely, we look forward to your comments.
Sure, definitely, and we'll try to get you those if they do come. If these do actually get out as I anticipate, we'll try and get those to you as soon as possible. We ran into some snags just with our new board and the process of, how we do it and do we get them involved, and then we had our APCO Rob Ryder retire, and there was kind of a vacuum of leadership at the time, and it just didn't get done. So
I didn't realize that Rob had retired.
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't know that. I probably should have shared that, but yeah, Rob retired at the beginning of August, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometime around there. So yeah, he's living a good life at this moment. So, but at the moment we don't have an interim air pollution control officer yet. So our deputy directors are kind of running the show for the time being. Thanks, Lisa and Sam.
Sure.
That's a good question, Nick. Any other questions or comments on item number 4? Okay. I'll move on to item number 5. The 2020 Ozone SIP implementation plan update, and this has been one of the standing items on the San Diego Region CWG agenda for a few months now, as we get updates on advancement of this document and then also approval process from US EPA. And we have Nick Cormier to kick us off, and then also John Kelly, I believe, might have some updates on the US EPA approval process as well. So I'll turn it over to you, Nick.
Great, thanks, Sam. Yeah, just I'll kind of give a rundown similar to what I provided last time around. But just as another reminder, on July 2nd, San Diego County was reclassified officially as a severe non-attainment area for both ozone standards. So that's already in effect. On the plan itself, on our 2020 plan, CARB submitted that plan back in January 12th to EPA, and now it's under EPA's review. And by law, EPA has 6 months from the submittal date to perform our completeness determination. That's required by the Clean Air Act, but in lieu of them acting on that officially, it becomes by operation of law deemed as complete. And so we reached that point as of July 12th of this year, 6 months after it was EPA received it. So by operational law, it's been deemed complete. That's not necessarily considered an approval that will come over the next 6 to 12 months on EPA's end, and something that I'm sure they've already started looking at in regards to our plan. They can take a number of different actions on it. They can approve it, disapprove it, conditionally approve it. So they can do a number of different things on their end after they review it based on all the criteria in the Clean Air Act. So that's something that will be forthcoming. It's possible later this year or possibly early next year we might start to see a proposal for that 2020 plan come out, but we'll see. John might be able to provide a better update on that. And then as part of that, that plan does include, as Sam mentioned, the on-road vehicle, the new on-road motor vehicle emission budgets. And so we did, EPA did post that for public comment back in June. And John can probably provide a better update on the status of the final action in regards to where those budgets are. I think that's all I had to share at this point, but I'm certainly open to any questions, or we can pass it over to John if he's ready.
Okay, I'll just go ahead. Thanks, Nick, for that summary. I'm going to try and hit every one of those items that you suggested I might cover, but if I forget, please remind me, because the first one is you mentioned the plan action, the completeness, and yes, you're absolutely right. The plan is complete by application of law as of July 12th, 6 months after the submittal date. What that does, the completeness date is EPA's trigger under the Clean Air Act. We have 12 months from the completeness date to take a final action, whatever that final action is. So that would be July 12th of 2022. But Nick, you're right. I mean, I would hope that we would have an action on that much sooner than that date. But considering that I'm just getting adequacy done right now, realistically, I probably won't have a proposal out for a couple of months, and so we might be pushing that July date anyway for a final action. It's a pretty big plan anyway. So it's not a trivial matter to take action on the whole thing. And then getting into the budgets. So yeah, thank you for reminding me that that kind of just things that are behind me, I just tend to forget about it. But yes, we did post on our OTAC website, the Office of Transportation and Air Quality. They maintain a website, as probably everybody knows. But if you don't, it's easy to find. Just OTAC and adequacy should get you there. EPA. And it's just basically our way of less formally doing adequacy as opposed to approval. I think that for our terms of art, we like to use the term adequate for what we do, what I'm doing right now for San Diego's budgets, and we separate that from approval. I mean, when they're adequate, they're approved for use, basically. But they're not approved. It's not the same as approved. When it's approved into the SIP. I'm not doing that right now. I was hoping to just move ahead and take the action and everything on the plan and the budgets. But given the fact of timing and Sandag's needs, we thought, okay, well, let's get these made adequate first, and then I'll take plan action later. And there weren't any comments on when I posted these things. I posted them separately, the 2008 standard related budgets and the 2015 related budgets. So those are two entries on our website there. No one gave us comments on either. And so I'm just about ready to put everything in signature. It's going through a little bit of a pre-review before it goes through the signature chain. But I should have that. I think that's all going to happen in the next week or two. And I'll be sending out emails when, and the process there is basically a letter. A letter is where we make the determination. Our division director will, she so chooses, she'll sign a letter saying that we find the budgets adequate. And then we will then publish a notice, just a simple notification in the Federal Register. It's not a proposal or anything, it's just a notification saying that EPA has determined the budgets are adequate. And then the Federal Register notice typically has a 15-day effective date after publication. So whenever it publishes 15 days later, those budgets will be effective and then must be used in the future. And they will replace the budgets from the 2016 plan, which was for the year 2017 for VOC and NOx. And so those are currently the budgets that are currently adequate. And then they'll be replaced by years 2020 and beyond for the two different standards out to 2032. So I'll take a pause there, and I think that might be it. Did I miss anything, Nick? Are there any questions?
John, just first to thank you for moving the adequacy process along. And if you can keep us posted as all these little things, and I don't want to minimize their little things, but as all these different steps happen, because we, at this point, it seems like for the revised air quality analysis that we will be submitting to the conformity working group in late September, we might be able to just use the 2020 SIP budgets, that they will have the adequacy finding at least published in the Federal Register. We may still be within those 15 days until they become effective, but it seems to me like we'll be really, really close to being able to just have one set of tables with only the 2020 SIP budgets, and that would be great. It's less confusing for the public, less confusing for our board and all of that. So if you can kind of keep us posted as the letter is signed, as it's published in the Federal Register, it would really be super helpful.
Yeah, I have a communication strategy that includes, an email blast of the letter and the notice. Well, we won't send out the notice with that email, but we'll send out the letter. Mm-hmm. And we'll indicate that, we're submitting this for the notice for publication. Mm-hmm. And that typically takes, a week or two. Okay. So if this letter and the Federal Register notice gets signed within, say, the first half of September, say within the first 2 weeks of September, and then it gets published, say by the end of September, then it would be potentially, hopefully, like the outside date for effectiveness would be October 15th-ish. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I mean, again, we can publish the revised air quality analysis with both sets of tables if we're not quite there yet. But by the time we publish the plan, we want to have one set of budgets only.
Right. Because
the board has to take an action on one set of budgets. So I think our drop dead would be probably mid-October.
All right.
Able to make that transition, from the two SIP budgets to the 2021. I think mid-October is as late as we can probably push it.
I think this will work. We'll try and keep it moving.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, and John, you covered all my points as well, so I didn't have anything else to add or question on that. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. If there's no other questions, I'll turn it back to you, Sam.
Good discussion. Are there any other comments or questions for Nick or John? All right, not hearing any. All right, look forward to the progress on this item as we see it over the next several weeks. So thanks to both of you for your efforts.
Okay, I'll keep you guys posted for sure.
Okay, moving on to item number 6, which is the MFAC 2021 update. So this is the model produced by CARB for air quality conformity. CARB has developed the latest and greatest version, and they're working with US EPA on developing submittal materials and requesting a status update from Nesamani Kalandiur from California Air Resources Board on how that's going. Nesamani?
Thanks, Sam. Good morning, everyone. It's a quick update. The latest update is we submitted the model, MFAC 2021 model. Our executive officer have signed the letter, and we sent it to US EPA yesterday. So that's the latest news in that regard. I know in the past meetings, I provided you an update about the model itself and then about the technical documentation, and we were working with US EPA regarding the submittal information itself. So it's finally went out yesterday. Just that's the latest information regarding MFAC 2021. Meanwhile, what we did is along with US EPA, discussion, and we developed an adjustment factor for the regulations that we adopted since MFAC 2017 was released for various regulations, example, advanced clean trucks, low NOx standard, and other regulations that our board has adopted. We developed an adjustment factor. We also submitted that for US EPA approval so that in the future, once that's approved, MPOs could take credit for it. In the future, they could use the adjustment factor using MFAC 2017 to demonstrate the budget as well. That package also went to US EPA for their review and approval. But meanwhile, still we are working with US EPA. Our legal team and US EPA legal team are working on regarding the waiver submittal, because that's required for US EPA to approve. The current timeline is we are tentatively thinking sometime in November. Hopefully, we'll be able to submit all the waiver packages to US EPA. So that would help them to move forward and approving the adjustment factor as well as the MFAC 2021. It's an ongoing conversation right now because the low NOx standard is the one with OAL for their approval. Once it's approved, then we will be able to submit to US EPA for waiver requirement as well. So that's the process. I'll be happy to update that more in the future meeting regarding the waiver submittal.
Manny, I'm sorry, I missed the date that you mentioned for the adjustment factors and MFAC 2021. What is the anticipated date?
We submitted it yesterday. You may know, Elisa, it takes the US EPA has to go through their public process. They have to work with the FHWA regarding the grace period and all for approving the MFAC 2021 model. So generally, if I have to go by, we don't have any deadline or anything that US EPA. Generally, if I have to go by based on the past practice, it may take anywhere between 6 months to 1 year to approve the MFAC 2021 model itself. Hopefully, the adjustment factor would be done relatively sooner than the MFAC 2021 model, since it don't have to go through the same rigor. It's more as a technical correction. So hopefully, US EPA able to act on the adjustment factor before approving the MFAC 2021 model. So to answer your question, I don't have a specific date for you, but that's the process we are looking forward to work with US EPA in this regard.
Okay, but it looks like the adjustment factors, the approval could come sooner than MFAC 2021.
Exactly, that's right, Elisa.
All right, thank you.
I'll be happy to answer any other question.
Hey, Nesamani, this is Lucas Sanchez from Caltrans headquarters.
Hey, Lucas.
Hey, so I just want to make sure I understand the timing of the adjustment factors side of it. So it sounds like adjustment factors were also submitted yesterday, but the waivers won't be sent until around November, you said?
Yeah, the one waiver that's specifically the low NOx standard, that's the latest adopted by our board. So it's under OAL. I think we are either, don't quote me on that, we are still going through the process to complete the OAL process, and then we'll be able to, that's the requirement of submitting the waiver itself. OAL has to approve. So once the OAL approves anytime, then we'll be able to submit it. So the current tentative timeline is sometime November, mid-November maybe. So that's what we are expecting it to be.
So again, just to clarify, in that case for the low NOx specifically, I guess as the adjustment factors in response to that low NOx regulation, those were submitted yesterday, and then the waiver will just be the legal backing for that this fall?
Exactly, that's right.
Okay, thank you.
Good questions, good conversation. I think I also saw a hand up from Stephanie Parent.
Thank you, Sam. My question was the same as Lucas's, so it was answered, hence I lowered my hand. Thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you, Nesamani. I appreciate the update. It's good news. Congratulations on getting that submitted. It was a big effort. So.
Exactly. Thanks, Sam. Yeah, I know it's a long process, but yeah, we are almost the finish line. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other comments or questions on item number 6, we'll move on to number 7, which is the 2022 state strategy for the state implementation plan. And there was a essentially a workshop on July 27th on this process. It was something I was able to attend, and I must say it was a well-run workshop, and I learned a lot. I think the prior version of this document was back in 2016, which was before I was in this current role, so it wasn't something I was on my radar. But I was able to attend this one and learned a lot. It was interesting to hear where a lot of the regulations actually do come from that CARB then later develops come from this document. So it's an important one. So I wanted to ask CARB and Stephanie Parents here today to give us a quick update on this.
Thank you, Sam. Good morning, everyone. And I don't know that I often turn on my camera and speak to the group. I'm usually listening to all of the updates from everyone else. So nice to be able to show my face and speak to you today. I'll start off by saying, so as Sam mentioned, you're probably aware CARB's begun the process of updating the state SIP strategy, and that we did hold a workshop in late July. My coworker, colleague Austin Hicks is actually the lead for the 2022 state SIP strategy, but I'll provide just a brief overview today. And then if you go to CARB's website and search for state for the SIP webpage or state SIP strategy, you'll probably get to the information. So there is the presentation from the end of July in case you missed it. And there's also the recording of the workshop if you want to go back and listen to it. So just big high level overview, the state SIP strategy is CARB focusing on the controls and the emission reductions that we're able to implement at a statewide level. It does build on the 2020 mobile source strategy as well as the previous 2016 state SIP strategy. This time around, there is a greater focus on priority communities. So, communities that are participating in the AB 617 community emission reduction plans, disadvantaged communities, environmental justice communities. To provide a little bit of background of what's been happening as a result of the 2016 state SIP strategy. Originally that was developed to support the 75 ppb 8-hour ozone standard. And at this point, CARB has adopted or is almost at the point of adopting all of the control measures that were included as part of that strategy. And at that time, the focus was more on the on-road strategies because the electric vehicle technology was more mature, it was more advanced at that time, and so more readily available. And then focusing on the 2022 state SIP strategy as far as potential measures right now, because just keeping in mind that this is a lot of kind of brainstorming and discussions with a variety of stakeholders at this point. So the theme is more focused right now on the off-road emission reduction strategies. And that's because now the technology is more mature in those areas and it's becoming more commercially available. And so the top or the big categories would be the on-road mobile sources. You might be aware that CARB recently adopted the Clean Miles standard regulation and that we're pursuing a motorcycle regulation to reduce emissions from those. And then also heavy duty advanced clean fleets regulation. Then for off-road equipment, there's quite a variety of things, but just to name a few of them, there's an in-use off-road regulation, there's tier 5 off-road, and then also commercial hovercraft. And then for the topic of kind of other sources, there is effort related to marine engines and also looking at amendments to our consumer products regulation. And then federal and international sources, even though most of that, falls to the federal government, right now CARB is pursuing an in-use locomotive regulation. and looking at the authority that CARB has in that area. Also looking into developing measures for aviation and ocean going vessels. And CARB is continuing to, have communication with the federal government and advocating for federal regulations for those types of sources. As far as the timeline goes, there is a slide within the presentation, but I would say it's already adjusted a little bit. So we're still looking at a second workshop this fall. The release of a draft for public comment and also an update to the board. I think that one was adjusted a little bit. So it's kind of looking at maybe early 2022 as a possible timeframe. Then there's the possibility of a third workshop that could happen spring of 2022. The release of the proposed state SIP strategy is looking at spring of 2022, and then a board hearing for summer of 2022. So that's my update, and I'm happy to try to answer questions, or if I don't know the answers, I can check in with my colleague Austin and get answers for you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Are there any questions on item 7?
Hey, Stephanie, it's Nick. Just one thing, I was just kind of refreshing my memory on that presentation, and I agree with Sam. That was a well-run presentation. As you know, I pestered you and Austin for actually notes from that presentation because it was so good. So I appreciate that. But I was kind of looking back through the presentation, and I saw that you guys were going to be doing an economic analysis, I think, as part of this. And I had kind of noted it at the time, and I just kind of refreshed my memory on it. If it's not being done already, I would maybe encourage CARB to maybe, if it's possible, to kind of break out some of those analyses in the economic analysis to individual air districts, if they can even be quantified down to different regions. And the only reason I bring that up is because we at the local air district also get questions about, what is the impact that this is going to have in our region, and we'd like to be able to answer that without having to pester you guys for that kind of a question, or be able to direct them to more kind of or to better data that can better answer the question as a local perspective. So if that's something that maybe you could take back to your team to see if that might be possible. I don't think it's something we absolutely have to have, but if there's some way to kind of break it out, that might be helpful for us in the future, especially as a lot of these new regulations start getting proposed, and that's the time frame where that information would be of most use.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks for that comment. I will make sure that Austin knows that. And we do have a group at CARB that works on economic analysis. So I imagine that he works closely with them on that. So I will make sure that that gets translated. Of course, I don't know at what level of detail that's possible, but I'm sure if they could do it, that if time and resources allow, then they probably would do that.
Great, thank you.
This is Elisa. I was just wondering, I missed the workshop, but I'm wondering for the on-road focus piece, you mentioned that the previous strategy had that kind of a focus because electrification was more commercially available, and anything new related to electrification. I imagine that this strategy has to take care of the new executive orders related to sale of, so all that's going to be folded into the 2022 strategy for electric vehicles.
That's a good question. Yeah, Yeah, because the governor had the executive order for electrification. I forget all the exact details, but so off the top of my head, I don't know the answer to how all of that comes into play. But I'll touch base kind of with Austin about that.
Okay, sounds good.
This is Money here. I can help you, Stephanie. I can help address Alyssa's question. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Alyssa, what we are doing as we speak right now, as you said, like the governor's executive order has been is signed that. So as part of that process, we are developing an advanced clean cut 2 regulation. That's as we speak, it's under progress. So we'll be happy to send you the web link and the future meeting. I think they had a couple, 1 or 2 workshops already to take feedback. We'll be happy. You can send you the link, and for future workshops, you can participate and give feedback as well. So what will happen is once the advanced clean car regulations is adopted by our board, that regulation will be reflected in the future SIPs, as well as it'll be reflected in the future MFAC model itself. That's where all these, you can take claim credit for those programs. So that's the future process. Right now, we are putting it as part of a commitment, but we are not there to fully say exactly how much tons of reductions coming from those regulations. So that's the process we are going through right now. Is that helpful, Alyssa?
Yeah. I was just wondering how it all, because everything evolves, right? So,
Exactly.
and like in fact, 2021 obviously didn't have the implementation of that executive order, but it comes through, I guess, future regulations.
Exactly. That's how the process. Once it's adopted, then it will be reflected in the MFAC model and the future SIPs and everything very specifically. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Nasimani and Stephanie. One other comment, a note that I appreciated in that presentation was the mention of motorcycles and reviewing motorcycles for potential emission reductions, because when we dive into MFAC emission values for our region, we're surprised at the high volume of emissions from a relatively low VMT and number of vehicles of motorcycles. I want to say it was in our top 5, which was surprising to us. So appreciate looking at that as you go through the process.
And I'm not an expert on motorcycles, but someone could correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it motorcycles, a lot of times they fall under more similar to like a 2-stroke engine, and so that has a lot more emissions, I think?
Yeah, that's a good question.
You're right.
As well.
You're right, Stephanie. Yeah.
Great. Any other comments or questions on item number 7? All right. Then we'll move on to item number 8. And so this is, again, one of the recurring themes, recurring items we've had on our agenda for the last several months. It's essentially looking at movements by both US EPA and NHTSA to reconsider Safe Rule Part 1. And so on the agenda itself, I describe a few of the items that have happened on August 5th, 2021, with NHTSA announcing proposed new fuel economy standards. Since then, on August 11th, they actually released theirs. They're proposed, and these are much more aggressive. They're proposed to go from what was set at 1.5% increases in fuel economy efficiency year over year to 8% changes year over year, and that would affect model years 2024 to 2026. It's out for public comment right now, and this is following the Biden-Harris administration's executive order 13990. I had to look that up in my notes there real quick, to review this and update the CAFE standards. At the same time, US EPA is also reconsidering the action that they took under Safe Rule Part 1. that also had a public comment that has concluded. Those are the updates I have on the reconsiderations for Safe Rule Part 1. But I wanted to open up to other members on the CWG to see if there's any other updates people are aware of.
Hey, Sam, this is Lucas Sanchez again. I guess I actually have a question for Nesamani on this item, if he's willing to humor me on it. Nesamani, I guess I'm just wondering, so this is the first time that I heard that particular figure shared about the increase now in the fuel economy from 1.5 to 8%. I think Sam said on a year-to-year basis, and know that with Safe Rule originally, it was a decrease under the Trump administration, which required the development of the adjustment factors for a continuing use of the, in fact, 2014 and 17 models at the time. But in this case, I guess I'm just wondering how this will impact the, in fact, 2017 and potentially 2021 models, I suppose. Are we anticipating adjustment factors in the other direction to account for these increases in fuel economy? Or is there another way they're going to be integrated into the model?
Yeah, hey, Lucas, yeah, I'll be happy to answer. I'm not sure, I wouldn't be able to validate the number, but I'm sure US EPA or NHTSA did those analysis. But I can talk surely what are the implications for this. So as you know very well, we provided the adjustment factor when the previous administration revoked the previous standards. So that's where the safe rule adjustment factor was released sometime end of last year, like 2019 and mid of last year. So that would be, once this rule is adopted and approved for MFAC 2017, we will remove basically you don't have to use those adjustment factor any year after that way if you're using MFAC 2017 model. However, in MFAC 2021 model, it's already inbuilt. The safe vehicle rule is already reflected in that one. So what will happen is once this rule is adopted, maybe then based on US EPA's direction, we may go back and revise that, remove those adjustments, and then make it with the new standards, whatever the US EPA is providing at that point. So that might be another update. To answer your question directly, Lucas, I think we may have an updated MFAC 2021 based on how this rule is implemented and the time frame and all those things. So there might be some kind of a revision. We may have to do it for MFAC 2021, along with either after US EPA approves it or before approves it, we may revise that and submit to them. So that's quite possible. So it's, yeah, I know I'm not giving you a specific timeline, but because the rule is still under consideration. So that's the reason.
Right. I understand that. Yeah. I guess I was just trying to wrap my head around, I kind of was aware of the status before of basically like the revoking or repealing the safe rule as it was, and then basically no longer needing the existing adjustment factors for MFAC 2017 in this case. But I hadn't really considered before the going in the other direction, so to say. So it's not necessarily that it's just going back to what these standards were, like the CAFE standards pre-safe rule. It sounds like they're kind of doubling down and maybe asking for more aggressive standards or increases on a year-to-year basis. And so I'm just kind of wondering how those changes would be reflected as well. But I think I understand your response though, Nesamani. I appreciate it.
No, I think you're right. And that's why I think we may have to, it's not going to happen everything quickly because the US EPA may have to go through their own public process, and even the new aggressive standard, they may have to come along with the regulation. So that will all take, as you know, the regulation takes easily 2 to 3 years to go through the whole process. Again, they may speed up the process. Again, I'm not giving that as a timeline, depending upon how fast they can get this done. And then once it's finalized and adopted, then we will be able to revise accordingly for any of those MFAC model. Maybe by the time MFAC 2017 itself, nobody's using, then we'll just more focus on 2021 at that point.
Right. And if I may, since I've been asking you all these questions, I actually wanted to go back briefly to the low NOx regulation and the adjustment factors thereof. I think I understand now how that will be integrated into 2017 as the existing model, but I'm wondering what the relationship between those the low NOx regulation, the waiver, what that relationship is to INFAC 2021 and its status as submitted to EPA now, will that also be an adjustment factor, or is that going to be treated the same way for that latest model?
No, yeah. So the MFAC, as I said earlier, like MFAC 2021 reflects all those regulations as it is, because our board adopted. Technically, it's there. It's why we are delaying our waiver submittal is because of the bureaucratic process. There is a process we need to go through after our board adopts the OIL process and all those things. Hopefully, based on past experience, OIL never rejected our regulation. So that's, again, it's all conditioned upon that. They never asked us to change anything in terms of the standard or anything. So we, as far as the standard sense, we all completed everything, all the process, the public process, board process, and everything. It's just we are waiting for the approval, and then we will submit the waiver to US EPA. So answering your question, MFAC 2021 reflects all those regulations appropriately as needed. Okay. So that's why it's ready for use once US EPA approves it. Whereas the MFAC 2017, these are all the regulations adopted after 2017 was approved, these regulations. So that's why we developed this adjustment factor. And again, for simplicity, what we've done is these all regulations combined as one adjustment factor for then anybody, MPOs or locals or anybody can apply that directly to their output from the MFAC 2017 model. So we are trying to simplify as much as possible. So you will see it once we post the adjustment factor memo. So that might be useful for you to use it. We're also providing an example how to use it.
Absolutely. Yeah, looking forward to that. And thanks again for hearing all these questions. It's kind of turned into an INFAC intensive, but
sure.
This is big news from the submittals yesterday. So I just want to make sure I'm tracking it all correctly so I can report it up the chain, Yeah. So
just to be clear, since you said up the chain, I think they all should have received that email as well, or attachment, the letter that we sent it to US EPA. It's all CC'd. I'm sure all the MPOs, executive directors, and RTPAs and Caltrans, all they should have received officially as well. Just for your information, I'll be happy to forward it to you, Lucas. Just after this email, after this meeting, I'll forward that email. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be really helpful. That's money. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Good discussion on item number 8, and then a little bit back to some of the previous items just to better understand the MFAC submission process, the adjustments and the waivers. So thanks to both of you for that. Any other comments on item number 8 on the reconsideration of the SAFE Rule Part 1? All right, not hearing any. Just a reminder that the next meeting of the San Diego Conformity Working Group is scheduled for October 6th. And for that meeting, we know already that we will be bringing the revenue assumptions for the 2021 regional plan back to the CWG. And we can also discuss the proposed final conformity documentation for the regional plan, because that will have been released to this group the week prior or possibly 2 weeks prior. So you can be partway through your review and we can have that item for discussion as well. I do see Nick has his hand up. So Nick, please.
Yeah, sorry, Sam, this probably should have been a member comment before, but I forgot. So I just, before we ended, I just wanted to share with the group that APCD is going to be, the notice should be going out next week for this, but we're going to be conducting a workshop on October 6th, which is actually the same date as our next Conformity Working Group meeting. But our workshop is scheduled for the evening, so it's 4 to 6 p.m. It's going to be kind of a kickoff workshop to start talking about the next update of our state ozone air quality plan revision. That's called the Regional Air Quality Strategy, or RAQS. We've never really had a kickoff workshop necessarily to start that process before on our end, but we did want to try and start to engage stakeholders, and certainly everyone on this call was a valued stakeholder in that capacity. We wanted to start getting ideas and concepts for possible additional ways we can reduce ozone here in the San Diego region. And so that's kind of going to be what that workshop is geared towards. So I just wanted to let everybody know that when we do officially release the notice, I'll go ahead and make sure I send it to the folks at Sandag and Sam and anybody else who wants it to make sure they are notified and if they want to participate in that. It's a virtual workshop, so we'll send that off when it's released after Labor Day. Thanks.
Thank you, Nick. Good announcement. Appreciate you sharing that. While we're there, are there any other announcements for the benefit of the group? All right. Well, with that, I want to thank everyone for your time today and your discussion, and we'll look forward to seeing you in a month at our September meeting, October meeting.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you next time.
And